Hey, I just saw a Facebook thing just now. Dane, I was coming in and about I seen it about an hour and a half ago. So somebody said, I need to get some advice on buying a new chuck, and I want to get something for under $150 or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that.
That thing is exploding, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That was like a bomb going off.
Yeah,
I mean, you,
that's kind of hard to get a quality chuck for $150 or less.
but then you when you make a mistake and do something like that, I'm going to say it, you
Can't
make a
explain it.
mistake and do something like that because then you've thrown $150 away on something that's
Right.
not going to work for you and it can't be expanded and is limited and might
Yes.
have a gizmo or a gadget that won't work. Um, I my personal opinion, I'm allowed to have one, only one, um, is I think somebody in Facebook, and I don't do names, um, said this is it. Pick a line, pick a program,
Yep.
pick a series, pick something you like. Now you like Vicmark, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a one way kind of guy. And I got that
Right.
because I bought two used lathes a long time ago, and they each had a one way chuck on them.
Right.
And I just kept growing it. I have about six or eight one way bodies back there, the different ones, the monsters and the regulars, and even the really old ones. Um, and I've decided I'm staying in that line.
Right.
I see all these novel things with snap on chucks, snap off chucks, extendable things, and this and that. As long as I can screw them to my one way body and they're a perfect match, I'm all right with that. But
That's how
no,
I feel.
no gizmos, no toys.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a solid connection.
You know what? You have to think about this a little bit further than at $150. Tell
Right.
you how far you got to think about it. If you're out there turning, it's a 30-pound block of wood and it's spinning at 2,000 RPMs, and something goes wrong with that chuck. Where do you think that block of wood's going to aim?
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
If you think you had a bad morning waking up and looking in the mirror today, think about tomorrow. If you do get to wake up, there's a whole lot riding on that chuck. Don't bottom line it. Don't bottom line it. I mean, it's one of these things. Well, if I do that, I can't do this. You have to do that. You just have to. I'm not going to say what brand you should go with. Um, I don't like the novelties. I don't like the gizmos and gadgets. Um,
Nope.
and I've here I say that, but I have one ways I change the jaws with my little Black and Decker screw gun type thing that's got very low torque, but but it won't cross thread it and such. But I'm a lazy old dago. I don't necessarily change jaws. I change chucks. Um, and it's when you get accustomed to it, then you realize, well, my jaws are set to the chuck. They're clean. There's no trash under them. They're set up right. They bottomed out, and they rotate. They come in and out smooth, and they lock up nice. That you've got a good setup. Don't mess with it. Don't toy with it. Um, Carl was an outlaw out west. Carl Jacobson.
Jacobson.
Yeah. All right. Um, he did something one time. He was changing chucks on some brand name that he promotes. Snap on, snap off jaws. and I can do it in 35, 40 seconds. And I did a counter video. I said, hey, watch. Choop, choop, choop. I changed my whole chuck in 10 seconds.
Right?
It's
Yeah,
I
Nova
think
came.
you got that jaw set down to 6 seconds now.
you do okay. But
Besides changing jaws, it's not just unsafe, but you've demoed some of these places and two of their chucks tighten left-handed and one tightens right-handed. You get your chuck into something and you go to take it out of a recess and you turn it the wrong way and bust the piece. I'm the same with you. I bought a one-way, I researched chuck. I bought a one-way Talon chuck. I got 10 of them now. And every jaw fits everything. My key fits every one of the chucks. I don't have a hex wrench for one and a gear wrench for another one.
No whammy bars.
Yeah, you got it.
I can't stand those things. Oh my God.
I want to find out. They give you the 2 whammy bars. Where's the monkey?
Yeah.
That puts one of them must eat the wood in.
Jesus Christ. What a pain in the rear. I remember my old Grizzly, it came with its version of a chuck. And I'm just going to say it's a version of a chuck because it's not a real chuck, I don't care what they say. I could never remember, which one is tightening, which one is loosening. It's just such a pain in the ass.
I agree. I got one of those too. Hate it.
I did a workshop with somebody in a guy, a member of a club I used to belong to. And he had 5 or 6 lathes in the shop, and they were doing a workshop with Ellsworth came over to do a thing. And Doc Lejeune was doing one behind me, and he had a chuck on there that went the opposite. All right, just like you talked about, Jim. And it hit me twice. He turned it on and boom. I said, what happened? So I went over, Doc, what's going on? I don't know. I tightened it up and it came off. And he was a dear old man. He really was. But he had a conventional chuck, righty tighty, lefty loosey, and all that.
Yeah.
But Doc at the time was in his early 90s, and it wasn't clicking real quick. All right, let's find Doc another leg. The funny thing, somebody said, you don't want him to get another leg, you just want him to get from behind you. So
Yeah, the old Novas are the ones that are counterclockwise. So I've got an old Supernova 2 chuck, and it's counterclockwise. And so I've got tenon and recess. I've got it marked on there which way to turn to make sure that I never forget on it. But the Vic marks, righty tighty, lefty loosey.
yeah, you can't go cheap on a chuck.
No.
And I understand money's money and things get tight and
Right.
you have to do things that you have to do. But remember this, folks, if you cut the corner on safety, and that is safety, you cut the corner on safety, how much of the corner are you cutting off? And please don't look for. I just thank God Harbor Freight doesn't sell something they could call a woodchuck, a scrolling woodchuck. Maybe they do, and I don't know about it. I don't want to know about it. But boy, that would be a nightmare. True wing.
Right.
I think we just had our safety moment.
Yeah.
Oh, this is,
They do have a faceplate, Harbor Freight.
and it's very brittle.
Yeah.
I bet.
Don't make it bad. Just crack up
Prime
on it.
example right there.
this
Actually, I
is
think
one of the
I think Harbor Freight does have a chuck, and they call it Grizzly.
And it costs $1.85.
this is one of the reasons. This is one of the reasons why I suggest people join clubs and get in their mentor program so that you can get into somebody's shop and see what kind of chucks and tools and stuff they have. You get a really good idea, use them, you know what I mean? So that you get a chance to to try these things out and see what the difference is. I had an interesting thing happen over the weekend. Rikon, when they ship out their little mini lathes, they send one of these low end chucks with it. Okay. Well, if you put it's just one of these self tightening things with the sticks,
Yeah, the whammy bars. We were talking about that.
Yeah, and if you get too big a piece on that lathe, and those things will undo themselves no matter how tight you crank them down. And I had that happen a couple times this past weekend, and it's like, what the heck is going on? The tenons are good, we cranked them down tight, and that's, I realized, you get going on too big a piece, and they start to loosen themselves, which is just bad.
Right. Yeah, Doug Miller, he's got one like that. I was watching one of his videos a couple weeks ago, and with that vase that you were making, and that thing untightened on you 2-3 different times during your little video.
Yes, it did. And I still have not figured out exactly what the problem is. I think it needs to be disassembled and cleaned. But normally,
You
in the
need to go
past, it's
find
always been
yourself,
fun.
you need to go find a stack of papers and set that chuck on it. Just leave it alone.
If I had some dollars to go get a new chuck, I would for sure.
Yeah.
I would like to have new chucks, but
Right. Understandable.
yeah. But in the meantime, I've got several others. I've got a newer Nova that has the key, and that does a lot better. It's a heavier chuck anyway, but that old original Nova, it has done really well until just recently. It starts to come loose on me for some reason, and I think it just needs to be cleaned well.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't. This is what I'm learning from guy that repairs sewing machines. Do not take compressed air to it to clean it out. No, that is a serious mistake. Because where is that dust and dirt going to go?
Further in.
It doesn't.
A couple of years ago, I did I'd asked online in a couple of the groups, like, has anybody cleaned their chucks? What do I do with it? And there's a bunch of suggestions. So I tried a bunch of the different solvents, mineral spirits, DNA, a lot of things. And the thing that worked the best was lacquer thinner. And I figured out, I do spray lacquer and lacquer-based sanding sealer on the lathe. So that lacquer thinner, probably some of that stuff had probably gotten into the chuck, the jaws tracks or whatever, and caused issues. So, but that stuff, the lacquer thinner really worked really well for me, whereas things like mineral spirits didn't. And I thought the mineral spirits would work well because I'd also sprayed spray paint, but it is with airbrush paint, so it is what it is. But the lacquer thinner is what worked really well for me. So I would encourage people to try all those solvents and see where they go. But
Could I say something?
Go ahead, David.
When you guys are
Go ahead, David.
when you guys are using your machines, I have a tendency to think that you're doing a disadvantage to your machine by using air hoses. Your air hoses will throw all that dirt right down in the crevices of your tools, and then it eventually is kicking up, and that's what the problem is. Because if you don't use an air hose, then you won't get it down into your ways or whatever you want to do. Whatever, just wipe it off. Take a brush and brush it off, because you're doing a disservice to your machine by using air to try to eliminate everything, but you're just forcing it down into the cracks.
Unless you spend some special time on the cracks as well.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that. I'm just saying that because I see so many people using air hoses to blow off this, blow off that. Well, the thing is, over eventually time, all that stuff is going down in those cracks, and you don't realize it. You think you got it clean, but you don't.
Yep. Unless you're not giving it any special attention, you're exactly right there, Dave.
I had a sewing machine guy that was a genius mechanic went and hung with him one afternoon while my wife was getting a new machine, and I said, "What's the biggest problem?" He said, "Canned air." He said, "I sell it on 6 packs of canned air." I said, "That's a problem." He says, "Oh yeah, that just brings me back a ton of business because I'll give this to the lady and I'll tell them, brush out your machine. Oh, I want 2 cans of that air because that's what I use." He said, "Huh, that's okay with me because you'll be, it means you can bring it back to me sooner because, I don't use canned air to clean your machine. I use a high density vacuum cleaner in a brush to clean it out. I don't blow it in, I pull it out."
Yeah.
And that's, and he was on along the line that you just had is, don't push it in, just take it away. And a
Yeah.
good dust brush. I grew up in wood shops where there was no pressurized air to be used. Number one, that cost money. You got a hose and you throw it in the air. And that was just a no-no. You didn't throw the dust in the air. You threw it on the floor. And it just to have a counter brush to knock things down and get it out the way.
Then another thing I'd like to say is that when you're talking about your chucks, you put the chuck keys on there, the different jaws. Don't over tighten them, because when you over tighten them, you're using the stress on those screws, and then when you do get a catch, everything blows up. Think about it. You're using the stress of the screws, and they could fail. So I mean, it's just a thing to throw out there. Just think about over tighten it, but just snug it up nice.
Treat it like an oil filter on a car.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Great input.
David.
Yes, and this all started for a little blurb on our Facebook page
Right.
about, can I get a cheap chuck, a good cheap? See, you put those together. Good cheap chuck. No,
Yeah, it doesn't
No.
happen. And that's what I said was, that you can't get a good cheap truck for $150. They don't exist
Not new.
unless you're buying used.